Good evening and welcome to this webinar, everyone. Excited to be hosting this webinar on opportunities in medtech space, frontline healthcare, safe surgery, and pediatric cancer. My name is Shashi, and I'm the practice lead at Wilgrow Innovations Foundation. Today evening, we have the following agenda. That's the way we will go through. Since we have got a lot of participants with different background, I'll take a couple of minutes to explain what BioNest program is, the MSMF BioNest, the Wilgrow incubation program around that. And then we talk a little bit about the UBS accelerator focused on these three diseases, then a short intro to the panelists, and then straight away we jump into the Q&A and take it forward. So to begin with, let me take a minute to explain about MSMF BioNest program. This is being formed by three entities, Majumdar Shah Foundation MSMF, it's called as the TBI, the Technology Business Incubator, Narayana Health, and Wilgrow Innovations Foundation. MSMF is well known, so is Narayana Health, doesn't require an introduction. And Wilgrow Innovations is a social enterprise incubator focused on social enterprise and startups, and it's been in the same space for close to 20 years, incubating social startups focused on the kind of health and energy and other innovations. About MSMF BioNest, it's a first corporate-based, hospital-based startup incubator. If you look at an entrepreneur, what are his needs, a health tech entrepreneur? Two of them come to our mind straight away. One is he needs access to patients to test his innovation. Second one, he needs guidance from the clinicians as well as regulatory. So this is the one that kind of gets everything under one roof, right? So in the same building, we bring together engineers, clinicians, entrepreneurs in developing life-saving technologies. And what does it mean for the entrepreneur? Faster turnaround for the entrepreneurs to validate their innovations, test it through clinical studies. So this is what the MSMF TBI is, and through the association with NH and Wilgrow is working on making this happen. What do they get in this MSMF TBI? So there is a lot of physical incubation offices, state-of-art infrastructure that the panelists will be speaking about, technical advisory, access to investments, mentoring, and access to network. So that's about MSMF TBI. Let me talk a little bit about this accelerator, which is supported by the UBS Optimus Foundation. This Wilgrow accelerator right now is focused on three diseases, which not I would say diseases, as is three domains. Pediatric cancer, frontline healthcare, and safe surgery. That is what it is. We are looking at some kind of a 100-day accelerator program to pick good to go startups that have some kind of a MVP, some early stage traction, and committed team to create solutions for the society. That's what this accelerator is going to be about. And as part of it, you get access to hospitals to test trial the product, guidance on the business model, followed by a demo day. That's what the whole thing promises. With this, I would like to invite the speakers, the panelists who have taken their valuable time from their clinical practice and on the holiday as well to be part of this webinar. So let me begin with this. Dr. Lavanya Kiran, welcome to the webinar. And Dr. Lavanya is a senior consultant with Narayana Health. She holds a specialty in obstetric and gynecology and robotic surgery. Presently working as a senior consultant with NHCT. And she's being recognized as one of the best gynec doctors in Bangalore. She's been practicing gynecs for years now and is kind of acknowledged as one of the best. She is also an expert on the robotic surgery, holds multiple achievements, one of them being the FOG-SI Award winner 2019 for her contribution to obstetrics and gynecology. Welcome, Dr. Lavanya.
Thank you, Shashi, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm looking forward to have a thrilling day today.
Sure. Next, I introduce Dr. Nidhi Tandon. Dr. Nidhi Tandon holds a specialty in medical oncology. Her fields of expertise include hematological malignancies, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and lung cancer. One of her various achievements include Conquer Cancer Merit Award for poster presentation at ASCO annual meeting in 2016. In the past, she has worked with organizations like Tata Memorial Hospital and is currently associated with Narayana Health Bangalore. Welcome, Dr. Nidhi Tandon.
Thank you very much, Shashi, and we look forward to this interaction.
Sure. My third panelist and speaker here is Dr. Rohit Raghunath. Dr. Rohit holds a specialty in gynecology, oncology, robotic surgery. That's one of the things we're talking about today, right? He's the second person in India to be awarded the MCH in gynec oncology. 3 years after MCI recognized this as a super specialty course. Prior to working with Narayana Health, he was associated as a specialist senior registrar at Department of Gynec and Oncology at Tata Memorial Center, Mumbai. He's also a Da Vinci and Intuitive Surgical Certified Advanced Gynec Robotic Surgeon. Dr. Rohit, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and we look forward to a great interaction.
Sure. Last panelist is Dr. Ashwini Kumar Kudari. He's a senior consultant in surgical and gastroenterology and robotic surgery, working with Majumdar Shah Medical Center, Bangalore. He did his MBBS from Armed Forces Medical College, Pune, MCH in GI surgery from PGI, Chandigarh, and postdoctoral fellowship in hepatobiliary surgery from STBPIMS, Lucknow. He's also done his fellowship in advanced obesity surgery from St. John's, Brooks, Belgium, and has been associated with other organizations like MS Ramaya, Manipal Hospital, and among many others. Welcome, Dr. Ashwini Kumar, to the webinar. You're on mute, Dr. Ashwini.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Shashi, for the kind introduction. And
so before I delve into the questions, a few things about what we are looking at in this
interaction.
Okay. So before I delve into it, what we are looking at is in this UBS Optimus from the Wilgrow Accelerator is the kind of companies we are looking at is in pediatric cancer is how do you improve diagnosis of childhood cancers, improve access to low-cost diagnostic equipment and servicing like imaging facilities is one. Increase access to treatment, strengthen specialized nursing skills and key subspecialties like pathology, pediatric surgery is second. And startups focused on increasing the survival rates of cancer patients and reduce the abandonment of treatment is the third one. Fourth one is increasing the number of pediatric oncologists, pathologists, primary care providers trained to recognize cancer warning signs. And last and most importantly, improve access to non-medical supportive care like nutrition, transport, hospitality, financial aid, ancillary, and blood supplies is the one that we are looking at in pediatric cancer. In safe surgery, the areas we are looking at is how do we increase the number of surgical, anesthetic, and obstetric specialists in a way that is scalable? And looking at tech-enabled early diagnostics of health issues by connecting surgeons to community health workers through telementoring platforms for CHWs. Improve access to affordable surgical tools and technologies. Simplify protocols to reduce the mortality rate and improve surgery outcomes. Skill development of surgical workforce or developing and delivering competency-based training and curricula and job aids. Lastly, improve access to safe C-sections for pregnant women, improve access to a facility that can perform cesarean, laparotomy, and other procedures quickly. So these are the areas we are looking at this in two domains. And with this, we kind of start off on the questions to understand more about happenings in this space. And as it's a kind of a webinar, you can also post your questions, and this will be taken up after the kind of webinar is done. We will go through 2 to 3 rounds of it. Each expert will get to speak 2 to 3 minutes around it. And I request all the panelists also to showcase some of the state-of-the-art equipment you have in your departments. That way, the participants also can see. This we see as a collaboration between Wilgrow and MSMF to scout the best startup and use the MSMF TBI to nurture and incubate them. That's the kind of partnership we are working on. So this is something we'll go with. And my first question would be to Dr. Lavanya. And that would be on what are the innovations you're seeing, Dr. Lavanya, in each of the spaces that we kind of spoke about and your expertise on that kind of things.
Shashi, I would say, first of all, well picked up topics, but then it is like a spectrum from the rainbow. We're dealing from one end where we're talking about community healthcare workers. And on the other spectrum, we are talking about high-end technologies of minimal invasive surgeries. I would say there's a scope for innovation at every sector. And I'm sure that is the point that why you're talking about from one end to the other end. And that is why we are all here today. We're all from different specialities as well. And then we have a lot of entrepreneurs logged in today. We have a lot of innovators as well. Any innovation, I would say, whenever you're thinking, you'll have to make sure that it is something sustainable and scalable. Before that, we have to make sure it is accessible and affordable as well. So I always tell all my technical team or the innovators when they approach to me, I said, always remember that, anything that you innovate, be it any field, the field that we are talking about now, or anything else that you can think out of the box. Always remember accessibility, affordability, which is the main hitch, I think, will be like any innovation as such, and scalable. And sustainable is very important because every day the technology is changing. You can think of technology from any space. Now you mentioned about healthcare workers. Not that India is any dearth of any ASHA workers or the healthcare workers. We have huge number of population, but is it that all the population available, utilizing all the facility that is there? No. Why is it? Because people are not aware of what is available. So I think we have to come up with technical things of how to connect the common people with the facilities that is available. Now, if we are looking about, I noted some points, then you said about the mortality rates that we're talking, be it minimal invasive surgery and all. So there again, you can think about so many things because that is a high-end technology. So that needs a different skills and entrepreneurship that is involved there, where you can think about a lot of innovation, and scope of innovation is so much because I think ahead is AI. AI has got no end. It's just that we need to catch up with the AI that is going to be there. And that is how we all can survive. And because all medical technology, entrepreneurs, innovation have to have hand in hand with the AI, and that is when we have a way forward. Coming to the mortality, I think you were talking about LSES and the mortalities that will happen. Again, good technology, good surgical techniques. And if people can work on improving a technical skill, because you know what, there are so much of dearth of doctors for the population that we have in India. So you have to make the doctors, whoever is there, I think for every 10,000 population, there's just one or two doctors, a very number, the proportion is not good. So whatever doctor you have to make sure you use the potential of them to reach out to as many as possible. And technology is the only way forward to reach out to people and help the huge population that we have with the class of doctors that we have. So I think we'll take I'll let others speak as well, and we'll take more questions from you later.
Sure then. So with this, I move on to Dr. Rohit. You are kind of an expert, having worked on robotic surgery and a certified person on this part. Could you share some things happening in the surgical space on the recent advances that entrepreneurs should look at to develop something that's already been built in?
Yeah. So thank you. So essentially, if you look at the spectrum of diseases or the spectrum of surgical work that we were doing, there is a very common graph which we always show. This is pertaining to number of surgeries which are done by the conventional. Now for entrepreneurs, surgery is done by conventionally it was done by open technique. That means somebody required a big incision in the abdomen, and then the surgery was done. Now all of this meant that the patient had to be in the hospital for longer time. The patient had pain, more pain. Now pain is something which is the most distressing feature, and that's why surgery is more feared. Patients had to fast more. They could not start feeding immediately after surgery. And all of that meant that for them to get back to their normal work, it took much more time than what was expected. Now, with that came the advent of technology. First was a laparoscopic surgery. So you no longer require a cut on the abdomen. You just have to have small holes, and the surgery is done through that. But essentially, if you look at that, the technology was a little crude. And then came the another advance, which is the robotic surgery. So in that, we have a much superior technology where you have superior instrumentation, a much precise instruments, and much better vision. And all of this means that we are doing more complex surgeries more safely, and we are offering better outcomes to our patients. Our patients are getting discharged early. It's now being cut from a surgery where somebody would have to stay in the hospital for 5 to 6 days, is now going home in a day and regaining back their normal activity. So essentially, we are not just saving, you can say it's a better quality of life, but we are saving a lot of economical man hours as well. So that is how surgery has evolved.
So to put into the context of the three things that Dr. Lavanya talked about, affordability. Does robotic surgery make the cost of the surgery less costly as it is, or it is still only a few can afford?
Yeah, so if you look at the absolute costs, it is definitely costlier than the open surgery or the conventional surgery, but you should not look at it in that terms. You should also look at it in terms of the economical hours or the man hours that you are saving. Now, to put that into simpler perspective, you do an open surgery, a person is in the hospital for about 5 to 6 days, and the recovery time takes about 3 to 4 weeks. Now, with a minimal access surgery, which is either a robotic surgery or a laparoscopic surgery, you discharge the patient in 1 or 2 days. That means you are saving on that hospital cost. So the patient doesn't require to stay in the hospital for longer time, doesn't require post-operative medications, doesn't require that many antibiotics. At the same time, one can join or rejoin his work in maybe a week's time. So you are saving about 3 weeks of man hours. So put into that perspective, it is in the long run, it is probably less costly than the open surgery.
Thank you for clarifying that. Actually, that's very good. So I'm kind of just summarizing what Dr. Rohit talked about. It's now more or less nothing like only a few can do. More and more things are coming up, and it's economical from the perspective you look at post-operative care treatment, quickly getting back to work and other things. It's kind of makes up for all the kind of thing, and your stay in the hospital is also significantly reduced. That's what today's world needs. Also, we need more beds in the hospital to treat more people rather than going the same way. Thank you, Dr. Rohit, on this. So moving on, my next question will be to Dr. Nidhi Tandon. Dr. Nidhi, could you talk to us about some of the areas in pediatric oncology that's evolving that entrepreneurs in medtech space need to look at? And what kind of challenges you have seen that entrepreneurs need to look at? It's as a very complex one, right? Because once you are into the onco, there's a much more fear, stage, so many things people go through. So what areas do medtech entrepreneurs look at to either cure it or prevent it? What's the kind of space you look at?
So first of all, let me start by saying that though pediatric oncology sounds the most scary thing among all the diseases possible, but over the last few decades, we have achieved a very good cure rates. And even though blood cancers and brain cancers are the most common type of childhood cancer, still overall we are able to achieve a cure rate as high as 85% overall. However, since it is childhood malignancy, I would like that 85 to reach 100. So the first thing which could be looked at would be sort of targeted treatment. So we have systemic chemotherapy which works for most of the cancer, but we now have the ability to detect certain specific receptor on cancer cells and target a therapy against those receptors. Especially for cancers which have a high rate of relapse, something like neuroblastoma, we should have a targeted treatment available. So after the completion of the main treatment, the patient can be put on certain maintenance kind of targeted therapy, which would prevent the relapse which is usually happening between the first 1 to 2 years. The second thing I would be interested in is immunotherapy has achieved a wide variety of uses almost in all the malignancy in adulthood. But the same data we have not got in pediatrics. So that is something which needs to be explored. And again, immunotherapy cost is a very big issue. Even with patient assistance programs provided by the pharma companies, the cost comes with, somewhere around 1 to 3 lakhs per session, which is every 2 to 3 weeks. So development of any generic or development of any biosimilars which can reduce the cost of immunotherapy would be one field which needs to be explored. Artificial intelligence is endless. We have so many opportunities, especially in childhood malignancies, where we want to, for example, we are just doing a MRI scan for a child. I would like the dose of radiation or the dose of contrast agent to be minimum possible. If I am doing again the MRI, normally it takes about an hour and a half to finish, and a lot of children need sedation for that procedure because no child will remain still. So how we can reduce the duration of this MRI? So things like that, which will make the life of these children much more comfortable by just including machine learning into our imaging modalities. The fourth thing, which is very important, especially in pediatric oncology, is pediatric cancers are very rare tumors, malignancies. And in US, we have something called as Children Oncology Group, which will basically amalgamate the data from all different institutes all over the country together to formulate any clinical trial or a clinical study. Since we are not able to produce that data in India because there will be, say, a few hundred patients in Narayana, a few hundred patients in Apollo, but we are not able to collaborate that data. So an electronic health record system, which is able to transfer the data from various institutes together so that even these rare diseases have a good number of patient population to authenticate whatever we want to prove, will be very helpful.
Sure. So extremely very new points. I'm not an expert on this. So what Dr. Nidhi Tandon talked about was immunotherapy. Though the cost is high, kind of, but you could catch some of these things pretty early. Second good point she made about was the importance of AI ML. We see it coming in every field, but in medical, it's much, much more. You look at past data to kind of look at predictions. Third point she looked at for something when some of us could connect to. How do we reduce the MRI scans, the time, the duration, reduce the sedation when we are looking at pediatric cancer patients over there? That's kind of a improvement in the overall, what we call it, at least a treatment, though we are going through the regular one. And also the EHR systems across how it's being done in US and other things, transfer it through US system across institutions. Now, I would pose the same questions to Dr. Ashwini. Taking a look at two of these things, what we talked about, robotic surgery as well as pediatric cancers, what has been your observations about the trends, medical innovations moving towards improving the treatment in these two fields, Dr. Ashwini?
The pediatric cancer is not the area of interest for me, so I will not be able to answer on that. Yeah, robotic surgery, I feel it is a much, much better technology than the laparoscopic surgery. And but the cost involved is very high in this. All over the country, I think there are about only 75 installations for robotic surgery platform. The main reason for this is the cost. If you compare the cost of
your voice
surgery and the robotic surgery, it is almost similar, because most of things in Western countries for surgery are also. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, this is better.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Switch off the video, I think. Yeah. What I was telling is the cost of laparoscopic surgery and robotic surgery in Western countries, if you compare, it is almost similar, because they use most of the instruments which are used in laparoscopic surgery are also disposable. But in India, we are able to reduce the cost of laparoscopic surgery to almost 5% of what it costs in the Western countries by using reusable instruments, local made instruments, and things like that. What I expect is for a robotic surgery also, I want some make in India concept where you can develop your own robot and your own instruments by which you can give the very advanced technology, which can be used by majority of the people of India, and also make it more affordable.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Ashwini. I will again take one big question and I will request each of you on your thoughts on this. Again, let's take the same thing on your domains, which is pediatric cancer or robotic surgery. And some of you have worked with entrepreneurs, medtech entrepreneurs, helping them guide and do that, right? So what's a typical life cycle? Let's say someone starts off at a concept stage with an idea to bringing it up to a commercial or even a deployment stage. And the reason why I'm benchmarking this is today we have got this TBI MSMF, right? So we are trying to shrink the life cycle of inventions because all of them are just one floor or one floor below, either the patients or the clinicians for them to do. So what are the important aspects that medical or medtech innovators, entrepreneurs need to take care of it right from the time they start to the time they kind of commercialize it in these two spaces, it's robotic surgery as well as pediatric cancer. That will make sure that they see the light of their inventions much faster. Okay, these are the 2 points that I would like to do. What are things they need to do faster to utilize the MSMF TBI facility, as well as what we call as pitfalls they need to avoid or be careful about. But I forgot one thing. I also want to request all of you to go through in this question, showcasing some of the state-of-the-art equipment in your departments to the participants. Okay, Dr. Rohit, we could start with you this time.
Yeah, thank you. Now, what I would, I may be, so a typical cycle would something involve like something around 5 years or 3 to 5 years for a credible innovation to come from the laboratory stage or to be made from scratch to be actually used in patients. Because one thing is there, we need to, whenever we are using something, we need to have very, very high standards of safety, because that is something which we shouldn't compromise as a clinician or a surgeon. So I would think that it would be something between 3 to 5 years. Now, just a suggestion to the entrepreneurs is, first of all, you should look at what is the problem. Like if they are innovating something, it should definitely be, they should identify what is the problem, and at the same time they should also look at whether it is scalable and whether at the end product should be viable. That is what is something which is important. And all of us, either they can contribute in reducing the costs, as most of my panelists have said, or making the quality of surgery more better and more safer. So these are probably 2 points where definitely there is some work in the future, and obviously including AI will have definitely a major role to play. For the entrepreneurs, I have a video to share. If you are okay, it's just a short 2-minute video. If that's okay, I can share. That just highlights the facilities of robotic surgery that we have at Narayana Health City.
So what I will do is I'll take this round across all the panelists.
Yes, and then we can
go through the same thing.
Sure.
Dr. Lavanya, the same question back to you. How do we expedite this using MSMF, TBI, and WillGrow kind of thing to help the entrepreneur to get this invention faster to the market to make that social impact and the relevant impact?
I think I love this question the most, Shashi. That's only because being in this field of innovation for almost a decade, I've realized there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there. There are a lot of innovators there. My first and simplest tip, I would say, is whenever you get an idea, make sure you meet the expertise in that area. Because your problem statement, once you analyze, you need to understand, is that the need? Because every day you wake up, all of us wake up with some innovative idea. But then everything to turn out to be an end product and a successful, sustainable end product is going to take a long way. It shouldn't be like finally you are halfway through your product because you got an idea, you had the finances to do it, but then you realize this is not the need. So identifying the problem statement is different, finding out the need is different, and then coming to an end product. If you want to have a, like I said, affordable, accessible, sustainable product, you have to meet the expertise of that field, be it the medical innovation or anything. Like now you have a beautiful platform for a medical innovation because you have the best of the clinicians available at Narayana. Then you have the technical team will grow. We have the BIRARC who is supporting. We have the foundation which is there, where at one platform you have everybody. So the minute you get an idea, we are going to do a lot of pitches here where you can come up, share your ideas. You get clinical expertise who are going to tell, look, there's something already existing, or this is not the way you're supposed to be doing it. And this is not we are looking at. The need statement is different. The problem statement is this. This is what we want you to think of a solution. Then this is what you're thinking is totally wrong. So I think this would be a wonderful platform. So make sure whenever you get a concept or you get an idea, make sure you discuss with the expertise. And I don't think you can find a better platform than this to share and pitch your ideas. And Shashi, I think you should tell them there are bigger grants whenever they pitch in, and then they can get good grants from a lot of people who are supporting this whole platform.
Thank you, Dr. Lavanya. Dr. Ashwini Kumar, your thoughts on these two. How can entrepreneurs shorten the life cycle of their innovations to commercialization?
I think when all the entrepreneurs and all the expertise is available in one campus, I think we can achieve the goals much faster.
Sure, thank you. Dr. Nidhi, your thoughts on pediatric cancer itself as an expert, right? It's a very complex thing. You need to be trying out so many things before doing it. So what are your thoughts on how entrepreneurs who are addressing cancer or pediatric cancer can get a problem definition right, use MSMF, TBI, will grow, all those kind of partners to bring their innovations faster to the market and create an impact?
So I'll absolutely agree with Dr. Lavanya. The collaboration with the medical expert needs to be started at the baseline because there are certain things which look very good on paper but are actually not very helpful to us in clinical practice. So getting those things sorted at the baseline with the help of a medical team is of utmost importance. And as I highlighted before, since pediatric cancers are sort of a rare distinct collaboration with, for example, even Narayana has about 23 to 26 centers all over India. So collaboration between all of them so that you achieve the target numbers as soon as possible. So these are the two things which we can do.
Sure. Thank you for your thoughts. I like your thought on this paper versus practice. What looks good is not really what it is. So you need to be using the expert. So we go to this round wherein each of the panelists will demonstrate some of the state-of-the-art equipment in their departments. And I will also, as usual, try to get more information from the experts. Dr. Rohit, you've been an expert on the robotic surgery, right? If anyone is working on this, right? What are the additional regulatory stuff people need to be focused on before getting their surgical product out or the robotic product out? I'm aware of all the standards of the ISO 13485, CDSO, etc. Right? When it comes to robotic, is there something additional that is required? That is one question you can take and then show us the video around your department.
Yeah. So essentially, I think as I mentioned in the previous thing, I think whenever you are coming up with a system, now the safety is something which is of utmost importance. Whenever you are innovating a new instrument or a new new robotic system, you need to answer, is it harming my patient in any way? So that is something which is not acceptable at all. At the same time, regulatory, as you are aware of the recent the permissions like ISO, and they are there. In addition to that, there needs to be a feasibility and a safety trial being done, and also at the same time, there also needs to be a something like a phase 3. We actually can't do a phase 3 in a robotic system, because that won't be blinded, or there are a lot of technical challenges in that. So at least a feasibility and a safety study needs to be done of a substantial number of patients.
Sure. Thank you. Talking of not harming, it reminded me of those Isaac Asimov's robo stories, which had 3 laws, how you could not do anything around it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
sure then. So please go back to sharing some of the state of the art.
Yeah. So So just allow me to share my screen. Yeah. Is my video visible?
Yes.
So this is the present
audio
system.
needs to be turned on, I think.
No, there's not much audio in that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is essentially how the system looks. So this is the patient card, which will actually go into the patient and operate. This is a central camera, which will help us to give vision during surgery. And because as a surgeon, we need to see for us to operate. This is all the instrument clusters. Now, this is the surgeon console, where the surgeon sits comfortably. And as you would have noticed, the surgeon is away from the patient. And these are the instruments which go into the patient's abdomen. And these are the joystick controls. And you can see when the surgeon moves the joystick controller, so these are master controllers, the instruments move very sophisticatedly in the patient's abdomen and perform the surgery. So essentially, it is not at present, we don't have any AI in the system. It's entirely under surgeon's control. And you can also see the present system is a little bulkier, so it is sort of occupying a lot of space. So there is a lot of scope for innovators in these two domains. That is what I feel.
So we do have one of these Da Vinci systems in our MSMF TBI departments for entrepreneurs to understand more.
Yes.
Sure then. Dr. Lavanya, would you like to showcase some of the state-of-the-art stuff that entrepreneurs can look up to?
I think Rohit has done the job for all of us, and he's made things very easy for us because we're all using the same system.
Yes.
But then what I would want to use the opportunity of you giving me this question is, we were talking about cost cutting, because, you know, now compared to what we have the 4th gen, which is already there. And just few years down the lane, we're going to have a lot of companies other than Da Vinci in the market. So everybody is talking about cost reduction. I think Rohit did have a valid point. When you're looking at the whole perspective, where is the cost increasing? It's your mortality, morbidity, hospital stay, your hospital bills, everything is coming. But still we need to work on the cost. But then all the thing that I want to pass it on to the entrepreneurs and the innovators is, while you're looking at cost cutting, make sure you're not compromising on the quality. How can you bring down the cost? Basically, you will have to reduce the quality. But then any innovation, if you want to be scalable and sustainable, make sure your quality of the product is maintained. See, you are going to reduce on your equipment, so the sensor which is there, or then the camera quality is going to come down. That is the only way you can cut down cost. If it could have been done, the Da Vinci would have already done. And they're a big player in this whole field. Why people, though they've been working for quite some time now, still not an equivalent competitor is there, because while you cut down the cost, your quality is coming down. So whenever you're thinking about these new technologies, you're using an AI, make sure the quality is maintained. And definitely in the Da Vinci product or any other robot which is going to come in the future, I think this is a very good scope if you're going to think about a single port system where all your instruments can be put into one port and be used. It's already in use in the US, but then it's not able to hit the Indian market exclusively, again, because of the cost. Now we are talking about Atmanirbhar and made in India. I think that's a good way to start off thinking about single ports for a robot in the future. Any company is thinking about, I think I want to put it on the open platform for people to take it, so that you put your thinking hats and start thinking about how do we get into, and you could be the first one entering in India and made in India.
Sure then. Dr. Nidhi, would you like to showcase any state-of-the-art equipment or best practices that you in the cancer department have got that entrepreneurs can have access to?
So we have been using both targeted therapy treatment as well as immunotherapy very, very frequently at Narayana Health City. And actually it will just be an infusion, so it will not be anything fancy like robotic surgery, but it is all, it is as effective. So that is one thing we are using. What is next in pipeline is something called as scalp cooling system, which is a very simple, just kind of a spa treatment, kind of a cap put on your scalp while the chemotherapy administration is going on. And it has been proven to reduce the hair loss up to from a range as wide as 40 to 100% in patients who receive that treatment. So that is next in pipeline, which is about to come to our hospital.
Sure, sure. Dr. Ashwini, any thoughts from your end on any practices, anything that entrepreneurs can look at to further or speeden up their innovations, etc.? Dr. Ashwini, you're on mute.
Hello, I didn't get the question. Could you repeat?
Yes, I think, of course, we can't match Dr. Rohit. He showed the Da Vinci. But just what I'm trying to look at is, as there are so many entrepreneurs on this webinar, right? We're also looking at how to showcase MSMF TBA as well as Will Grow stuff into, when they come into the, as part of incubator, what do they get to see? What are the kind of best practices they've got? It will help them. Along with the mentoring and the clinical support, each department has got its own stuff, right? Anything you would like to showcase from your department?
Dr. Rohit has already shown it.
Okay,
I
then it is
think
fine.
I don't know what they're at. I think if we move on to the question and answer section, then I'll understand what those people are looking at, and then I think we'll be able to
Let us do that. So I'm at the last part of the question. Each of you can take quick 30 seconds and we close to a minute, and then we move on to the Q&A. Have you come across any unique enterprises or innovators in areas that you would like to see? All of us spoke about access, scalability, sustainability, affordability. Of course, without taking the name of the startup, this is something I found interesting, novel in the pediatric cancer. Dr. Nidhi can talk about, Rohit and others can talk about in the robotic surgery. This was something novel. I'm proud of that. India is coming up with that. Okay, take a quick 30 seconds and around the table you can do, and then we move on to the entrepreneurs' questions. Dr. Rohit, we could start with you. Anything you have come across recently that's pretty innovative without taking the name of the startup?
I'm not so sure if it is from a startup, but maybe something like, so I can talk about during surgery for gynec cancers. So there is anatomical structure called as ureter, which goes from the kidney to the urinary bladder. So as a surgeon, it's very important for us to identify that and separate it out carefully, because that's something which we need to do during our surgery. So there is something called as a so there is something like a stent which goes inside the ureter and which is visible. So that helps in better delineating it during surgery. And so that is something which is quite
pretty
useful.
Innovative.
Yeah, so that was
good. Thank you for sharing. All looks awesome. Dr. Nidhi, would you like to go next? A quick 30 seconds on any very innovative stuff that you came across, which kind of touched you and say, this is cool.
So it was artificial intelligence used in chest imaging to differentiate between benign and malignant tumors of the chest, of the lungs. And also I came across a study where artificial intelligence was used to determine organ or vessel encasement by the tumors, which determines the operability of the tumor.
So good then. So if you have found one, I'm sure there are more that need such kind of innovations. Dr. Lavanya, we move to you. Anything that you have come across in the last, let's say, a month, which you found extremely innovative, smart, and maybe I haven't thought about this, I'd like to talk about?
Quite a lot. You'll have to make one session for me, Shashi, then.
One 30-second question, please.
And you've given me only 30 seconds. So anyway, so coming to robotics per se, I would say the couple of days back, I was hearing a new company who's working on differentiating the blood vessels in the ureter. I think it's wonderful. Ureter is still my fear, irrespective of how many centuries I'm going to hit and I've already hit. So this is a beautiful technology which is coming, which will help you identify the blood vessel in the ureters in the robotic. We've already had quite a few companies who pitched in, and we're working on monitoring of the fetal heart rate. There've been companies who are doing home fetal monitoring as well. So they can go to the home and monitor the fetal heart of the baby. So there are a lot of people, this is how you're cutting costs. And COVID especially, you want people to stay at home. So there is a company which has come up where they go home and check the baby's heartbeat. The NST is done, where it comes out like an ECG, which we do it in the hospital to make sure the fetal well-being is assessed. So they go home and do it. And I think that I'm totally impressed with that. And we have a lot of pitches. They're also working with Narayan on the same platform because of this, where in the labor course, the patient wears the belt and she walks around, and I can still see the reading of the fetal heart rate. And I think that is also one of the wonderful innovations. And I've been a clinical principal investigator for them. There's another company where we're doing ovulation tracker. You won't believe it. It shows the hormones on your app, which you've downloaded on the phone. And they're today an FDA approved company. And I'm proud that I've been a clinical investigator for them. So we have several people who have worked through this platform, and we are always there to make you reach the highest heights that you can ever be there. So make sure you use us well.
Thank you. I think that some of them are awesome. And lastly, we move to Dr. Ashwini. Anything you have come across that kind of looks at, hey, I found this to be cool. I think Dr. what other three spoke about, they're kind of igniting a lot of ideas in our entrepreneurs who are on the panel, who are on the participant side. So anything you would like to share, Dr. Ashwini, on similar lines?
The superimposition of the CT or MRI pictures on the operative picture, like when you are performing a complex robotic surgery like Whipple surgery, sometimes the blood vessels will be behind the tumor, or sometimes they are very close to the tumor, and you don't know whether you are moving in a correct plane or not. So if you are able to superimpose the CT scan or MRI picture on the operative field, then you will know whether you are going in a correct direction or whether you are, to prevent the injury to the vital structures. It will help very much.
Sure, then. So that was my last question. Now, what we will do is there are a lot of questions coming up. I will look at opening them up to the panelists and see what are the ones we could take on one by one. Okay, I think the first one is, what is the scope of something in between fully manual laparoscopic surgeries and really expensive robotic surgeries? Anyone in the robotics expertise panel could take this on. Dr. Rohit, would you like to answer? Dr. Lavanya?
Yes. As of now, there is nothing like in between the laparoscopic surgery and the robotic surgery. But if we can somehow reduce the cost of robotic surgery, we will just about get there. So essentially, there is nothing like manual and automatic. So robotic is essentially manual as well. It is not automatic. So that is what I would say. As of now, there is nothing, but we hope that with the cost of robotic coming down, we would have something to fit in that mid-segment category.
Sure, then that was a great point you made, that it is not automatic, it is still manual. Only what we do is get access to the precision, and we will be controlling it through a monitor. Like
yes. So essentially, it is still driven by the surgeon, but all of these innovations would definitely be assisting us. It's like driving a Tesla, or it's like driving a car, but at the end of the day, you need a driver. So you will have a driver assist, but all these things would make it more better and safer.
Great. So seeing the title itself, I know it is towards Dr. Nidhi. Regarding oncology, what is the scope for image-guided robotic surgeries, particularly intra-operative in board procedures under the CTI MRI guidance? Or yeah, anyone else also can answer this.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Yeah, please.
I think Dr. Lavanya or Dr. Ashwini can take this question.
I think this is almost what Dr. Ashwini was looking forward for, where you have an overlapping image and then that helps you guide and you can be more precise. Of course, if you add an image and then you can overlap it and then see it, I don't think there can be any glitches there. So it would be a wonderful innovation where you can overlap and make sure that you're approaching the right structure. I think that is a good innovative field to explore, I guess.
Can I just make a comment regarding that? So it is something like a 3D printing. I think most of us are aware of 3D printing. It is like a superior version of 3D printing, where you can have something like a Google Glass where the image would be superimposed on it, or it would be superimposed in the robotic console, where actually for deep-seated tumors or where you are close to vital structures like blood vessels or nerves, and the CT or the MRI would give you a better picture while operating.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Rohit. I move to the third question. Would providing better primary eye care come within the scope of UBS Optimus Foundation and Wilgrow Accelerator? So in UBS Optimus and Wilgrow Accelerator, we are looking at three things: pediatric cancer, as well as safe surgery. The third one is called as frontline healthcare. So we are trying to look at how do we increase the access, how do we kind of make sure it reaches the farthest of the people. If you have technologies, we are not focused on disease by saying it should be eye care, it should be cancer. Your point would be around, I have a technology, I have something that I am going to be improving the primary eye care. You can certainly go ahead and apply for this program, and we would certainly look at other parameters and evaluate. So please go ahead, Bharat. Okay, that's something I took. And the fourth one is, where do we stand in terms of surgical training skill evaluation? Already discussing curriculum of at least few teaching institutes. That's something, let me just come back. What is the way forward? Innovative laparoscopic single port surgery. I think Dr. Lavanya and Dr. Rohit answered that. Okay, let me answer this one. Where do we stand in terms of surgical training skill evaluation? Are we discussing curriculum at least a few teaching institutes? So what's your take on this? Is it already permeated into the medical institutions as part of curriculum, robotic surgery?
No, it's definitely not. It's not a part of the curriculum. It's just that something that even we have picked it over just a few decades. So It's been in India also just in a few decades from the past. So it's definitely not in the regular curriculum which is there, but it will be a way forward. And that is when, if the machine becomes more accessible to people in terms of cost, because it is quite an expensive machine per se. So you cannot put it in every medical college or any teaching institute. So working on the cost is very important, but definitely training skills can be developed. Like laparoscopy has been there for more than 4 or 5 decades now. Robot is still supposed to be hitting 2 decades, not yet. So what happens when it has been there for centuries or 4 or 5 decades now? You have a training skill, the stimulators which is there. So at least the robot stimulators can be there, and then people can get started doing getting trained for themselves in the similar way. So stimulators is a way forward, but then like I mentioned, AI is going to be in the future. It is here to stay. AI is here to stay. It's just that we have to catch up with that. So you can think widely in the future and make sure that you bring up a lot of technologies for the medical students, because they're already acquired. So, even like a suturing or anything can start off from the medical college with the 3D printing. We are all getting aware of it while we are in the field now. So if it starts from the medical level itself, it is a part of the curriculum as an education, and the AI is introduced to them as a basic portion. I think even the technologically, I've had somebody in the last time saying the doctors are not very open to technology. So I think it is just the setback of the people there. And so if it starts as a curriculum from the basic MBBS level, I'm sure people are going to be aware of this. And I can see a lot of doctors already becoming entrepreneurs and a lot of innovations happening in the field. And it will be a way forward. Definitely, it is a good thing to be taken over.
Sure. So I will be closing the Q&A. I think the last question was under the eye care itself. Yes, it does come under frontline healthcare, Bharat. You should be applying for this UBS Optimus Accelerator program through the Wilgrow. Now we are kind of almost on time. And let me just see for the last time if there are any new questions that have come up. I think all the panelists have answered all the things, nothing new. So I would like to kind of, in the last 5 minutes, summarize important inputs provided by the panelists and the takeaways for the medtech entrepreneurs on this webinar. So we look at more and more medtech entrepreneurs to apply to our TBI MSF the program, as well as the Wilgrows UBS Optimus Foundation. So here is a great platform. Once again, I'm saying wherein you've got patients, clinicians, everything for you to do validation, and you've got the best in the medical community to do it. So key takeaways, as I look at my notes, is look at sustainability, scalability, access, and affordability. I think that's the first point Dr. Lavanya brought out. And look at connecting, how to be looking at accessibility using technologies. And Dr. Rohit, Dr. Nidhi, and Dr. Ashwini spoke about the importance of, let me just look at Dr. Nidhi's stuff. She spoke about pediatrics, something about the immunotherapy, the AIML, how do we reduce the dosage. Those are some of the challenges that the pediatric or generally the cancer community is looking at from the entrepreneurs to come up with good innovations. And on surgery, yes, the experts spoke about how it is fast, how it is painless. It does take away some of the pain, and how the admission in hospitals, which is a bigger pain from a cost perspective and stay in the hospital perspective, gets significantly reduced from a 5 to 6 days to a 1 day. You can look at that kind of an economics. And there's still a lot of work to be done around. Then we talked about how do we reduce the cost by using reusable components, instruments. And then the most important question I did pose to the panel was, how do we reduce the innovation cycle by using this TBI MSF and innovation Wilgrows incubation process? Usually it takes 3 to 5 years for a innovation to come out. But however, if you're able to identify and the right problem, scalable, viable, and look at not just a what we call as a paper perspective, but from a practice perspective, you can move on faster on that. So those are the things we kind of learned from this session. And any one of you would like to make any closing comments as I kind of take this to a closure? It's been exciting being moderating this session with the experts on this field. Any further questions, you could write to us either on the Wilgrows side or on the MSMF TBI side. The person concerned would be Arun Patri from the MSMF TBI, and you can reach out to me from the Wilgrows perspective, anything on that stuff. So any further closing comments before I take this session to a closure?
If nobody is making a comment, then I'm going to make and assure people. I always say Indians have the jugaad in their gene. So there's a gene mutation which has happened in the Indians. So you can come up with wonderful innovations. Just make sure that you have a right platform, right people that you approach right from this initiation of your idea. And I think you're going to hit the market with a successful product. So remember that, you approach the right platform and the right team you have it. And always work as a team. That is when you have a better success.
Sure, then. Thank you, doctors, for taking your valuable time of your practice today and sharing your thoughts on these medical innovations. Thank you, and have a nice weekend. Looking forward to hosting more of those sessions. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wilgrows, and thank you, MSMF.
Thank you very much.
Connecting all of us.
Thank you very much.